The breaking point, Captain Sarah Chen straightened her uniform as she walked through the gleaming corridors of Station Omega 7. The massive space station served as the headquarters for the Galactic Trade Assembly, where representatives from 43 different species gathered to make decisions that affected trillions of lives across the galaxy. Sarah had been walking these halls for 5 years now, and today would be different. Today, humanity would finally ask for what they deserved. Dr. Marcus Rivera fell into step beside her, his tablet clutched tightly in his hands. Behind them, Commander Alina Vasquez marched with military precision, her boots clicking against the polished metal floor. The 3 humans represented Earth and all its colonies in this vast cosmic bureaucracy, and they carried the hopes of billions on their shoulders. The assembly hall stretched out before them like a cathedral of chrome and crystal. Beings from across the galaxy had gathered here, their various forms creating a tapestry of evolution's wildest experiments. The Zephyrians, with their crystalline bodies, caught the light and scattered rainbows across the walls. The Thorac delegation sat in their environmental suits, their gaseous forms swirling in contained chambers. At the center of it all, the great circular table accommodated creatures that breathed different atmospheres, lived at different temperatures, and thought in ways that would drive most beings mad. Sarah took her seat at the small section marked for humanity. It was positioned near the back, far from the center where the major powers held court. For 5 years, humans had occupied this humble position, grateful just to be included in galactic affairs. But gratitude had its limits. Archon Zelthis called a session to order. The massive reptilian being stood nearly 3 meters tall, his scaled hide bearing the scars of countless battles from his homeworld's violent past. His voice carried the authority of millennia as he spoke through the universal translator. We gather today to address the petition submitted by the human delegation. Sarah stood, feeling the weight of thousands of alien eyes upon her. Some of those gazes held curiosity, others showed barely concealed contempt. Most simply looked bored, as if humanity was nothing more than an inconvenience to be dealt with quickly. Honored members of the assembly, Sarah began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. Humanity requests elevation to full partnership status within the Galactic Trade Assembly. For 5 years, we have served faithfully as junior members. We have exceeded every quota, completed every assignment, and contributed far beyond our designated role. Dr. Rivera activated his tablet, and holographic displays filled the air above the table. Charts and graphs materialized, showing humanity's contributions to galactic civilization. The numbers were staggering. Humans operated 60% of the galaxy's mining operations. They had increased agricultural output on barren worlds by 400%. Human engineers had designed the quantum tunneling drives that made faster-than-light travel possible for smaller species. Human doctors had developed treatments for diseases that had plagued alien civilizations for millennia. These achievements speak for themselves, Sarah continued. We have proven our worth not through words, but through actions. We ask only for the recognition and equal say in governance that our contributions have earned. A ripple of what might have been laughter passed through the assembled beings. Minister Vextai, a mantis-like creature with 4 arms and compound eyes, was the first to respond. His voice clicked and chittered through the translator. The humans mistake utility for equality. A tool does not govern alongside its wielder. The insult hit like a physical blow. Sarah felt her jaw clench, but she maintained her composure. Commander Vasquez shifted beside her. and Sarah could feel the military officer's anger radiating like heat. Archon Zelthis nodded approvingly at Vextai's words. The human petition is denied. However, we have reviewed your recent performance metrics and found room for improvement. The great reptile's eyes fixed on Sarah with predatory intensity. Mining output must increase by 25%. Agricultural yields need improvement on 17 worlds. Your military contingents will be reassigned to the Outer Rim conflicts, Sarah's. Hands trembled with suppressed rage. And in return for these increased demands, you continue to enjoy the protection and guidance of superior civilizations. Ambassador Corvin spoke for the first time. The crystalline being's voice rang like wind chimes in a storm. Your species shows promise, but you remain children playing with forces beyond your comprehension. Perhaps in another century or two, you might be ready for greater responsibility. The condescension in those words broke something inside Sarah's chest. She looked around the chamber at beings who lived in cities built by human hands, who ate food grown by human farmers, who traveled in ships maintained by human engineers. These creatures owed their comfortable lives to human sweat and ingenuity. Yet they saw humanity as nothing more than useful animals. Dr. Rivera leaned forward in his chair. Our childish innovations have increased your lifespans by an average of 30%. Our primitive medical techniques have eradicated 47 diseases from your populations. Our simple engineering has made your ships twice as fast and 3 times more efficient. Minister Vextai's mandibles clicked in what the translator rendered as laughter. Yes, you follow instructions well. A trained pet can also perform impressive tricks. The chamber erupted in what passed for alien amusement. Beings chittered, hummed, and buzzed their approval of the insult. Sarah watched it all with growing horror. These creatures truly saw humanity as nothing more than clever animals. 5 years of faithful service, of exceeding every expectation, of proving human worth again and again, and it meant nothing to them. Commander Vasquez stood slowly, her hand resting on the ceremonial weapon at her side. The military officer's voice cut through the alien laughter like a blade. Captain Chen, I believe we have our answer. Sarah rose to her feet, and Dr. Rivera joined them. The 3 humans stood in the center of the vast chamber, surrounded by dozens of alien species who saw them as useful tools rather than equals. The moment stretched out, pregnant with possibility. You're right, Commander, Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the sudden silence. We do have our answer. She turned to face Archon Zelthius directly. Humanity withdraws from all galactic trade assembly agreements, effective immediately. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Aliens shot to their feet, appendages waving, voices raised in dozens of languages that the translators struggled to process. Through the chaos, Sarah heard fragments of outrage and disbelief. You cannot simply leave. The contracts are binding. This is unprecedented. Archon Zelthis slammed a massive fist onto the table, the sound echoing through the chamber like thunder. Humans, you do not have the authority to make such decisions. Your species agreed to abide by assembly law. Sarah smiled for the first time in months. We agreed to abide by assembly law as members of the assembly. Since you've made it clear that we're not truly members, just useful tools, those agreements no longer apply. She gestured to her companions. Dr. Rivera, please transmit the withdrawal notice to all human colonies and installations. The scientists' fingers flew over his tablet. Message sent, Captain. All human operations are receiving the stand-down order now. What is this stand-down order? Ambassador Corvain's crystalline form seemed to dim with concern. Commander Vasquez answered with grim satisfaction. Every human worker, engineer, doctor, farmer, and soldier in assembly space is ceasing operations and returning to human territory. You wanted to treat us like hired help. Well, you just fired your entire workforce. The implications hit the alien delegates like a tidal wave. Across the chamber, beings were frantically activating communication devices, trying to contact their homeworlds. The chatter of panicked conversations filled the air as the reality of the situation began to sink in. You cannot be serious. Minister Vextai's compound eyes reflected his growing terror. The mining operations, the food production, the maintenance systems, they're all run by humans, Sarah finished. Congratulations. You just discovered how dependent you've become on your useful tools. Dr. Rivera looked up from his tablet, his expression grim. Captain, I'm receiving confirmation from across the galaxy. Mining operations on 47 worlds are shutting down. Agricultural stations are going dark. The shipyards at Kepler Station have ceased production. Archon Zelthius stepped forward, his reptilian features twisted with rage and the first hints of fear. This is madness. You will doom billions of beings to starvation and chaos. Sarah met his gaze without flinching. You should have thought of that before you called us pets and tools. For 5 years, we asked for respect. For 5 years, we asked for equality. You gave us neither. She turned toward the exit. Now you'll learn what the galaxy looks like without human tricks. The 3 humans walked toward the chamber doors, their footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Behind them, the assembly had erupted into chaos as delegates realized the magnitude of what had just happened. Species that had never agreed on anything were suddenly united in their panic. As they reached the exit, Sarah paused and looked back one final time. When you're ready to treat humanity as equals rather than servants, you know where to find us. Until then, good luck managing your civilization without us. The doors closed. Behind them, with a soft hiss, cutting off the sounds of alien panic. In the corridor beyond, Sarah allowed herself to smile. It felt good to finally stand up for her people, even if it meant walking into an uncertain future. Commander Vasquez checked her chronometer. The first transport ships will start arriving within 6 hours to begin evacuating our people. And the assembly? Dr. Rivera asked. Sarah's smile widened. The assembly is about to learn that humans weren't just members of their civilization. We were the foundation it was built on. Let's see how well their superior intellects handle things when the foundation walks away. The galactic collapse 72 hours after humanity's dramatic exit from the Galactic Trade Assembly. Emergency sirens wailed across Station Omega. Archon Zelthist stood in the Assembly's Crisis Command Center, watching as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Each message brought news of another catastrophe, another system failure, another world sliding toward chaos. The great reptilian leader's claws scraped against the metal console as he struggled to comprehend the scope of the disaster. In his 3 centuries of life, through wars that had consumed star systems and plagues that had wiped out entire species, he had never seen anything like this. The humans hadn't fired a shot, hadn't launched a single attack, yet they had brought galactic civilization to its knees simply by walking away. Minister Vextai scuttled into the command center, his usually pristine carapace showing signs of stress molting. Archon, we've lost contact with the agricultural stations in the Vega system. The automated systems failed 18 hours ago, and there are no human technicians left to repair them. What about the Thracian engineers? Zelphius demanded. Surely they can handle basic maintenance. Vextai's mandibles clicked nervously. The Thracians never learned the human systems. They assumed the humans would always be there to handle the technical details. He paused, his compound eyes reflecting the flashing warning lights. Archon, 14 billion beings depend on food from those stations. Without them, Zelphis didn't need him to finish. 14 billion beings would starve within months. The thought of such massive death tolls made even his warrior's stomach turn. He turned to the holographic display showing the galaxy-wide status report. Red indicators were spreading like a plague across the star map. Ambassador Corvain materialized beside them, her crystalline form flickering with agitation. The situation grows worse by the hour. The mining operations in the Centauri cluster have completely shut down. Without those rare metals, we cannot maintain our defense systems. The barrier fleet protecting the core worlds will be inoperable within days. Days. Zelphius felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Genuine fear. The barrier fleets were all that stood between the civilized galaxy and the hostile forces of the Outer Rim. Without them, countless worlds would be defenseless against raiders, pirates, and worse things that lurked in the dark between stars. A new voice cut through their panic. Perhaps now you begin to understand. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the doorway of the command center, flanked by Dr. Rivera and Commander Vasquez. The three humans had returned to Station Omega-7, but not as petitioners seeking favor. Now they held all the cards. Zelphius whirled to face them, his reptilian features twisted with rage. You! How dare you return here after the chaos you've unleashed? Sarah walked calmly to the central console, studying the cascade of failure reports with professional interest. We didn't unleash anything, Archon. We simply stopped preventing the natural consequences of your poor planning. She gestured at the red flashing indicators. This is what your civilization looks like without human support. Impressive, isn't it? Minister Vextai rushed forward, his movements jerky with desperation. Captain Chen, you must see reason. Billions will die. If this continues, billions were already dying. Dr. Rivera replied coldly. Human miners on asteroid stations with faulty life support that you refused to upgrade. Human farmers working 18-hour days to meet impossible quotas while their own families ate ration paste. Human soldiers dying in your wars while you called them too primitive for meaningful rank. He pulled up a holographic display of casualty statistics. We've been paying in blood for your comfort for years. The only difference now is that you might have to pay too. Commander Vasquez stepped forward, her military bearing radiating controlled authority. But we didn't come here to gloat. We came to discuss terms. Terms. Corvain's crystalline form brightened with hope. You're willing to negotiate? Sarah smiled, but there was steel in her expression. Oh, we're way past negotiation. These are the conditions under which humanity might consider returning to galactic civilization. Take them or leave them. She activated her own tablet, and a document appeared in the air above the command console. The terms were simple, clear, and utterly devastating to the established order. First, Sarah began, humanity receives full partnership status with veto power over any assembly decisions that affect human interests. Second, all previous quotas and demands are eliminated. Humans will contribute to galactic civilization as equals, not as servants. Third, Human colonies receive complete autonomy over their internal affairs. Fourth, a formal apology is issued by the Assembly for 5 years of systemic discrimination and exploitation. Archon Zelthus read through the terms, his rage building with each line. These demands are outrageous. You're asking us to restructure the entire Assembly. No, Sarah corrected. We're telling you how the Assembly will be restructured if you want human participation. If you don't want our participation, you're free to continue managing your collapsing civilization on your own. As if summoned by her words, a new alarm began sounding. A hurried-looking Zephyrian technician rushed into the command center, his crystalline body flickering with panic colors. Archon, the quantum tunnel network is failing. Without human maintenance teams, the navigation systems are becoming unstable. The implications hit everyone in the room simultaneously. The quantum tunnel network was the backbone of galactic transportation and communication. Ships used it to travel between star systems in days rather than decades. Information flowed through it, binding far-flung worlds into a single civilization. If it failed completely, the galaxy would fragment into isolated islands of light in an ocean of darkness. Dr. Rivera checked his tablet and nodded grimly. The cascade failure will reach critical mass in approximately 6 hours. After that, the entire network will collapse, and it will take decades to rebuild even with human expertise. Minister Vextai was now visibly molting, leaving flakes of chitin on the floor around him. Captain Chen, please, we can discuss your terms, but you must stop this collapse. We're not causing the collapse, Commander Vasquez reminded him. We're simply not preventing it anymore. The quantum tunnel network was always unstable. Human engineers spent their lives maintaining it, upgrading it, keeping it running through sheer determination and expertise. You never bothered to learn how it worked because you were too busy calling us primitive. Another alert chimed, and the holographic display updated with fresh catastrophes. The industrial worlds of the Perseus Arm were going dark as their automated factories shut down one by one. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for centuries were collapsing as human-operated logistics networks disappeared. Even the luxurious worlds of the inner core were reporting shortages as the complex supply chains that sustained their pampered populations fell apart. Corvain's crystalline form had dimmed to barely visible transparency. How did we not realize? How did we become so dependent without understanding it? Sarah's expression softened slightly. Because you saw us as tools rather than partners. You never bothered to understand what we did or how we did it. You just expected it to work. She gestured at the chaos unfolding around them. This is what happens when you take your tools for granted and then lose them. Archon Zelthus slumped into his chair, the weight of the crisis crushing down on him. Through the command center's windows, he could see other alien delegates rushing through the corridors in panic. Species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were now helpless. Without the humans, they had dismissed as inferior. What about your people? He asked quietly. Surely they're suffering too. Commander Vasquez actually smiled at that. Our people are doing better than they have in years. Turns out, when you're not being exploited by alien overlords, you have a lot more time and resources to take care of your own needs. She activated her own display, showing feeds from human colonies across the galaxy. *. The images were startling. Human settlements that had been struggling under assembly quotas were now thriving. Technologies that had been shared freely with alien civilizations were being used to improve human lives for the first time. Gardens, bloomed on worlds where humans had been too busy mining for alien corporations to tend their own food. Children played in areas that had been converted from weapon factories serving alien wars. You see, Sarah explained, we weren't just supporting your civilization, we were sacrificing our own development to do it. Now that we're free to focus on ourselves, we're discovering just how much potential we actually have. The quantum tunnel. Network alarm reached a new level of urgency. Dr. Rivera glanced at his readings and shook his head. For hours until total collapse. After that, it won't matter what terms anyone agrees to. The assembly won't be able to function as a unified organization. Minister Vextai fell to his knees, his proud mantis form reduced to desperate pleading. Please, we'll accept your terms. Full partnership, autonomy, everything. Just save the network. Sarah looked at her companions. Dr. Rivera nodded slowly. Commander Vasquez shrugged. The decision was unanimous. Very well, Sarah said. But understand this, humanity will never again be taken for granted. We're not just joining your civilization as equals, we're probably going to end up leading significant portions of it. Because frankly, you've proven you can't manage without us. She activated her communicator. All human engineering teams, this is Captain Chen. Begin emergency stabilization of the quantum tunnel network. We're coming back, but this time, we're coming back as partners. As human ships began moving toward critical infrastructure across the galaxy, as human engineers prepared to once again save alien civilizations from their own incompetence, Sarah allowed herself one moment of satisfaction. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of human servitude was over. The age of human leadership had begun. Asterisk.